Welcome to IP Concerns Deep Dive, the podcast version of our IP Concerns blog from Cascade Law Group. Here, we unpack intellectual property-related, real business and brand protection topics in a way that actually makes sense, no legal experience required.
I want you to picture waking up on just a completely normal Tuesday. You reach over, grab your phone off the nightstand, and you see you have, I don't know, like 47 missed calls.
Oh, wow. That's never a good sign.
Right, never. And there's this massive flood of text messages. Like, one of them is from your boss, another is from your mom, and they all contain the exact same link to a video on some local community page. So obviously you click it.
That's right.
And the video starts playing, and there you are. I mean, you are standing in a coffee shop that you've literally never been to, and you're screaming something incredibly offensive at a barista.
Yeah, that's just a nightmare scenario.
It really is, because it looks exactly like you. The cadence of the voice is yours. The nervous hand gestures are completely yours. But you never said those words, and you have absolutely never set foot in that building.
But to everyone watching it on their feed, I mean, it looks 100% real.
Exactly. It is a completely fabricated digital clone, which, brings us to our mission for today's deep dive. We are looking at a proposed legislative response to this exact nightmare scenario.
Yeah, a piece of federal legislation called the FAKES Act.
Right. And today we're going to really look under the hood of this framework to understand, well, exactly how the government is trying to protect your digital identity, and maybe more importantly, how they actually plan to enforce it.
Which is the tricky part. Because this isn't some distant sci-fi thought experiment anymore. I mean, we are well past the point where creating a flawless digital replica requires, a Hollywood studio and a massive budget.
Yeah, anyone can do it now.
Exactly. The barrier to entry has just completely collapsed. And that leaves our whole concept of personal identity incredibly vulnerable.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is the fundamental architecture of this proposed law? Where do we even start?
Well, let's start with the acronym itself, right? Because it kind of sets the whole legislative intent. No Fakes stands for Nurture Originals, Foster Art, and Keep Entertainment Safe.
Nurture Originals, Foster Art, Keep Entertainment Safe. Catchy.
Yeah, very clever naming. But if we strip away the acronym, the core mechanical goal here is really to give every individual the legal authority to control the use of their face, their voice, and just their overall likeness when artificial intelligence is involved.
Okay, so it's about control.
Exactly. It attempts to establish this nationwide right to stop others from creating or distributing unauthorized digital replicas of you.
I really want to dig into that specific concept, that idea of a nationwide right, because honestly, this feels like a massive philosophical shift in how we handle ownership in this country.
It really is.
Because we're all, generally familiar with copyright law. Like if I take a photograph or if I write a song or publish a book, copyright protects the thing I made.
Right, the created work.
But my face isn't a copyrighted work. I mean, my voice isn't some patented invention. It feels like the FAKES Act is trying to invent an entirely new category of property rights. Like it's protecting who we are, not just what we create.
That is the crucial distinction right there. Because historically, protecting your identity, what lawyers actually call the right of publicity, it's been this chaotic patchwork of different state laws.
Oh, really? It's not federal?
No, not currently.
Yeah.
A handful of states have really strong protections for your likeness, but others have virtually none. So what this new framework proposes is a unified federal standard.
Got it.
It legally codifies the idea that your biological markers, so the unique geometry of your face, the specific resonance of your vocal cords, they don't suddenly enter the public domain just because an algorithm has gotten sophisticated enough to map and replicate them.
Which totally makes sense. Like, to use an analogy, let's say someone invents this magical next-generation 3D printer.
Okay.
And this printer is so good that someone can take a blurry photo of my house keys from across the street, feed the photo into the machine, and print a flawless working copy of my keys.
Right.
Just because the technology to copy the keys exists, it doesn't mean my house is suddenly public property, right? The law still recognizes my right to lock my front door.
That 3D printer analogy actually perfectly captures the spirit of the legislation. The mechanism of the replication shouldn't invalidate the underlying right of ownership.
Right.
And under the No Fakes Act, if someone uses AI to copy your voice or your face without your permission and then deploys it in a misleading or commercial context, you actually have a clear legal mechanism to fight back.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, you can issue a formal takedown demand, and you can potentially pursue financial damages in federal court.
Okay, let's pressure test that a bit. Like, who actually gets to use those legal mechanisms? Because when we hear phrases like commercial context or right of publicity, it immediately evokes, Hollywood actors negotiating contracts or famous musicians protecting their brand.
Sure, yeah.
So I have to ask, is this legislation only protecting the mansions or does it protect my house too? Like, is this just a VIP shield for celebrities or is it for the everyday person?
The framework is explicit on this front. It covers three distinct categories. It protects celebrities and public figures, absolutely. It protects independent creators and working artists, but it also explicitly extends full protection to everyday individuals.
But wait, why does an everyday person even need protection against the commercial use of their face? It's not like someone is going to put me in a blockbuster movie without asking.
Well, because commercial misuse scales down just as easily as the technology does.
What do you mean by that?
Think about it. A bad actor might not put you in a Marvel movie, but they might scrape your social media photos, clone your voice from a brief video you posted, and use your digital replica to endorse a fraudulent crypto scheme.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then they put that in targeted ads aimed at your specific geographic community or even directly at your contacts. They're using your trusted local face to sell a scam.
That is terrifying.
Right. So the law recognizes that your likeness has value, even if you aren't famous. And you have the right to prevent its unauthorized commercial exploitation.
Okay, but that makes the protection incredibly broad, which really leads us to the enforcement problem. If every single person listening to this right now has a federally protected digital identity, how on earth do we draw the line between malicious fakes and, I don't know, normal human behavior?
That's a great question. We have to figure out how this law maps onto the real world.
Right.
To understand the boundaries, the source framework actually suggests mapping the proposed rules onto the norms we already accept in society without AI. So think about our current standards.
Okay.
You are entirely free to talk about another person. You can imitate their fashion style. You can draw a satirical cartoon of them. The law protects all of those actions as standard human expression.
Right, so if I sketch a caricature of a friend or write a fictional story featuring a character who just happens to act a lot like them, they can't sue me for stealing their identity.
Exactly. However, those existing rules also have firmly established limits. You cannot pretend to be someone else to secure a bank loan.
Obviously not.
You cannot use your neighbor's face to advertise your plumbing business without their consent. And you cannot forge documents to mislead the public about what someone else has done.
Right.
The No Fakes Act simply takes those exact same established limits, primarily deception and unauthorized commercialization,
Right.
and applies them directly to the output of artificial intelligence.
Let me push back on that a little bit, though, because introducing AI kind of complicates the whole intent aspect.
How so?
Well, let's say I'm at a dinner party and I do a wildly exaggerated, just terrible vocal impression of a well-known politician.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
We all agree that's just a harmless party trick, right? But tomorrow, I go online and use an advanced AI audio tool to generate a flawlessly accurate clip of that exact same politician saying the exact same silly thing I said at the party.
Right.
Does that perfectly accurate AI clip automatically cross the line into illegal territory just because the algorithm is, better at the impression than my natural vocal cords?
No, it doesn't, and that's a key distinction. The technology itself is not the trigger here. The law doesn't make AI illegal. It is entirely focused on context and intent.
Okay, intent.
The legislation specifically targets digital replicas of performances that never actually occurred when the intent is to deceive the viewer or commercialize the likeness. It distinguishes a fun party trick from a digital clone meant to mislead.
So the focus really is on the deception.
Yes.
Let's explore the gray area of that deception then. Say a political action committee creates a highly realistic AI video of a rival candidate confessing to a crime.
Okay.
It looks perfect, it sounds perfect, but at the very end of the video, they include a 1-second, slightly blurry text graphic that says, generated by AI parody.
The disclaimer loophole.
Exactly. Is that deception or is that protected expression? Does the little disclaimer save them?
That specific scenario represents the absolute bleeding edge of where courts are going to have to interpret this law.
Mm-hmm.
The framework relies heavily on a reasonable person standard.
Meaning what exactly?
Meaning, would a reasonable person viewing this content believe it is authentic? If a highly realistic video is designed to circulate on social media feeds, where users watch for an average of like 3 seconds before scrolling. A 1-second disclaimer at the very end might not negate the intent to deceive.
Because the deception happens way before the punchline.
Precisely. The friction point is that AI removes the obvious absurdity that usually signals a parody. When a fake looks completely indistinguishable from reality, proving it's merely a joke becomes so much harder.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the moment you start talking about policing intent and determining what a reasonable person believes, well, you are colliding head-on with the First Amendment.
Oh, absolutely.
Historically, whenever a law proposes restricting what can be created, published, or shared, it sparks a massive debate about free expression.
It is easily the most intensely debated pillar of this entire proposal. Anytime you grant individuals the power to demand the removal of content, you open the door to potential censorship.
Well, the text of the proposal goes out of its way to outline exemptions, right? Like, it explicitly states that the law is not designed to ban parody or satire.
Right.
It maintains protections for news reporting, cultural commentary, documentaries, and historical works. You can still mock public figures. You can still criticize corporate leaders. Traditional artistic expression remains totally protected.
Those exemptions are vital. But critics argue that the exemptions might not hold up against the mechanical reality of how content is actually hosted and moderated on the internet.
Because of how the takedown process works.
Exactly. If a bad actor creates a fake video of you, they are likely anonymous, or they're operating completely outside U.S. jurisdiction. You can't easily sue a ghost.
So who do you go after?
The platforms. The enforcement mechanism essentially relies on targeting the social media companies and the video hosting sites. If you notify a platform that they are hosting an unauthorized digital replica and they refuse to take it down, the platform itself could become legally and financially liable for the damages.
Ah, and that creates a massive chilling effect. Let's look at the mechanics of that platform liability. It sounds like critics are worried this will turn into a digital game of whack-a-mole. It's like a bank handling a potentially fraudulent check.
That's a good way to look at it.
If platforms are suddenly on the hook financially for hosting these fakes, they aren't going to sit around acting like careful judges, weighing the nuanced differences between a legal parody and an illegal deepfake. To avoid massive lawsuits, platforms will simply refuse to cash the check.
They'll just take it all down.
Right. If a powerful CEO or a politician doesn't like a highly critical but legally protected piece of satirical video, they could just flag it as an unauthorized fake. And the platform, terrified of liability, uses a sledgehammer when they needed a scalpel. They just pull the video down automatically. Critics are warning this will squash genuine creativity and freeze the entire ecosystem of user-generated commentary.
And that is the absolute core of the critics' argument. They fear the law hands a weapon to powerful entities to silence legitimate criticism under the guise of protecting their digital identity.
Right.
It places this massive, perhaps completely unmanageable burden of arbitration on tech companies. And those companies will naturally default to the safest financial option, which is widespread deletion.
So how do the architects of the End No Fakes Act respond to that? How do they prevent this from just becoming a tool for mass censorship?
Well, the supporters argue that the law is carefully calibrated to avoid that exact freeze. They point to those strict requirements for proving the intent to mislead.
So you can't just say, take this down, I don't like it.
Exactly. The framework requires more than just someone claiming that's not me.
Uh-huh.
It requires demonstrating that the replica is being used in a way that causes tangible harm or commercial loss through actual deception.
Okay.
Supporters argue that without these clear federal rules, we face a much, much worse scenario.
Which is?
A total collapse of trust in digital media, a world where individuals have zero recourse when their identities are hijacked and weaponized against them.
It's a real high-wire act. We are trying to build this legal fence around our personal identities without accidentally fencing in the public square.
Right. If we synthesize the ultimate aim of the legislation from the source material, it's really an attempt to address a fundamental breakdown in digital trust.
Yeah.
The NLA Fakes Act is not an attempt to silence speech. It is an attempt to mitigate deception. The legal system is basically trying to adapt to a reality where seeing is no longer believing.
Which is a wild place to be.
It is. Now, whether the specific mechanisms of this law strike the perfect balance between protecting an individual's right to their own face and preserving the chaotic freedom of the internet, that remains highly debated.
Sure.
But understanding the mechanics of what the government is actually attempting to do provides a much clearer lens for viewing the ongoing evolution of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so what does this all mean for us? I think it cuts through the paralyzing fear of the technology and grounds it in actionable policy. We have a specific new problem, and we are trying to engineer specific new rules to manage it. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of the No Fakes Act and the future of digital identity. We really hope it gave you a firmer grasp on how the law is trying to catch up to the algorithm.
It's going to be fascinating to watch it unfold.
It really is. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with one final, lingering question to just turn over in your mind on your own. We started today by imagining the terror of a perfect digital clone.
We did.
As AI inevitably continues to refine its capabilities, and our digital replicas become mathematically indistinguishable from our physical selves. I mean, perfect voice, perfect cadence, perfect visual fidelity. Will the law even be enough?
It's a big question.
Will we eventually reach a tipping point in society where we have to fundamentally alter how we communicate? Where every single time we send a voice memo or join a video call or post a message, we have to rely on complex cryptographic watermarks just to prove biological authenticity. In a future where the digital you is perfect, how will you prove you are you?